Welcome back, friends.
Today we're going to talk about the concept of personality. And is there a such thing as a true permanent personality?
I'm going to go with no.
Well, I would agree with you. Unfortunately, in our society and culture, we teach this idea that we develop and maintain a permanent personality. So we act as though the world must conform to how we are, and that we have no choice but to be how we're going to be.
Right. And of course, the breakdown of the word personality is my personal reality. Well, you and I sit here as adult men, and I can tell you my personal reality has changed drastically from 17 to 27 all the way up into my 50s. And it better have, because there's so much more that I know that I can't unknow. There's so much more that I've adjusted to that I didn't know I could. So my reality has changed, thus my personality
Exactly.
has changed.
And how many people do you know, and how many people do you come across in your practice? I mean, you've been practicing now for over 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
How many times have you heard them say when they come in, well, that's just who I am. That's how I am. That's my personality. I can't change.
Many have come in and said that.
And if that's their personality, then what do they do when they're in a circumstance that is not fitting of their personality? Do they just die?
Right.
Do they just disappear and become, non-existent?
And of course, they don't, but they sure die trying.
Exactly. They die trying to maintain who they think they are.
Yes.
They die trying to be their personality.
Yes.
But the fascinating thing is, and I've used this example because I learned it in a book, but the fascinating thing is that if we take the concept of our personality and challenge it with the simple thing of handing someone a baby. If you take anyone, it doesn't matter who they are, and they say, oh, well, I can't change, it's just my personality. The second you hand that person an infant, watch what they do.
Yes.
Their entire person, everything about them changes. Their voice changes. It becomes, infantile.
Expressions.
Their face becomes rubber. It like slides off of their skull. It makes all these weird expressions. It doesn't even make sense. They start gibberishing at the baby, and the baby's looking at them like, what's wrong with you?
Right.
And the funniest thing is they've regressed further into being a baby than the baby.
Yes. Yes.
So that in and of itself is proof, wouldn't you say, that personality or being identified as a personality
Yes.
is false.
Yes. I've even explained to people, and I think we got it from a similar material, is that every time somebody goes through something of significant impact, we'll say on their timeline, they adjusted if it's just a slight adjustment, maybe it's the first time maybe they had to try out for a competition, and maybe they didn't quite get what they wanted, but they got the next best thing, slightly different, or sadly maybe a significant loss. Maybe they were close to a pawpaw, and then pawpaw gets sick. Okay, that I have to adjust. Just so that too is a slightly different personality. I was explaining, we can see from our office here, friends, we can actually see the interstate not far from where we are. And so I told this young man, I said, when I'm sitting here talking to you, the core of my being doesn't change. My beliefs are my beliefs, but I'm not talking to you the same way that I drive home on that interstate. That's a different guy. If you think of it like a wheel of fortune, and there's all these little panels, so I just adjust the next panel. The core in the middle, if you will, that doesn't change, but I had to put a different panel on so I can traverse traffic. Then once I get to where I'm going with my family, now I pull that panel up, and those are different parts of personality. And every time we invest in them, we're always in adjusting mode. I'm a little bit better, sometimes not so good, but then that's when I get to change. And go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that I think part of what you were referencing is, at your core, you have convictions. And your convictions are not your personality. Your convictions are the core driving factors in your habitual behavior.
Yes.
They are your belief systems. That's
Yes.
not your personality.
That's right.
The problem comes in where we develop a belief system structured around what we call a personality.
Yes.
And that is living a lie.
Right.
That is attempting to structure your outer world
Yes.
to conform to what you've developed as habitual behavior in your inner world.
Yes. Years ago, I was going through material, and again, if you followed our podcast for some time, you realize that we are in question asking. We're always learning because we're always wanting to grow. And I saw this material that it described personality as a motif through which we see the world. Motif being like a painting. And so if you imagine a window, let's say there's a painting on this window behind me, and like a stained glass almost. And so there's panels and there's colors and there's shapes, and oftentimes those can be, kind of smooth and rather palatable, but sometimes they can be hard colors with hard angles, and a lot of that may be effect of life experience. And I often ask people, I said, is that the motif through which you want to see the world? I said, you and I can go look out of our personal windows down at the same scene. Maybe it's a park, and you might see something beautiful. You see flowers and kids playing. I might just see a bunch of grass that needs to be cut, because that's my job, is cut the grass. And so I see work, you see pleasure. That's personality. What do we have to do? We have to then make those adjustments, or just get used to living with the consequences of that. And that is adjustment. There is a disorder in the mental health world we call adjustment disorder. And anytime something happens, maybe you're in a car accident and it's stressful. Okay, I'm adjusting to cope with that stress. But folks come into our office because they don't want to live like that anymore. So it did affect their personality for a little while, but now we're working on better ways.
So what if we then begin looking out our windows at the world, but first looking at ourselves with a sense of curiosity? What if we then begin to question everything about our internal habits of thought, habits of behavior, and we just viewed ourselves with curiosity? If we just simply questioned everything about what we do, not question our own convictions. Our convictions are mostly healthy, I'm sure, but if we just questioned our behavior, we questioned our habits, we questioned our thought processes and the words that we use constantly, like the word should, or like the word, I don't know, think of a word can't, or any of those words that are, or the word try.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
A phrase that comes up a lot because I'm in the relationship communication a lot is you would think. I would think.
Well, that's a should phrase.
That's a should, yeah.
You would think.
You would think. And so oftentimes we deal a lot with managers, we deal a lot with staff from managers, and that is a common thing. Those phrases are very common among the folks we have to do it, and we get the privilege of challenging that. Oh, well, tell us why they should. Well, I mean, it's just, so what if it starts with, well, I mean, it's just, now that's my personal reality.
That's right.
Might not be theirs. So oftentimes we get to ask the effective questions such as, so when they said this, how did you hear that? Now that's my interpretation. And then we get the pleasure of getting behind that and saying, and what's the reason you think they said that? Well, I'm not sure. That's where we start doing communication work. Oh, well, let's ask. And so then sometimes in our conferences, they've turned to the other person and said, so when you said that, what did you mean by that? Now that's fun. Now what am I doing? I'm opening myself up to their perception, their personal reality, their motif, if you will.
That's right. And what you've actually done is you've begun a practice of questioning everything.
Questioning everything.
So, in closing, the challenge will be, what if you simply begin to question everything about yourself from a place of curiosity, not a place of judgment, not a place of should, but just a simple place of curiosity. When you put yourself in a place of curiosity, then you place yourself at a learning mindset.
Yes. Yes.
How much could we develop in ourselves, and how quickly if we simply operated with that learning mindset.
Right. We oftentimes use phrases such as owners are growers. Growers must ask those effective questions.
That's right.
And the effective question is obviously questioning everything. And but there won't be growth without question. Because anything other than question, then we start getting into comfort. And we'll talk about that on another show, about that challenge between growing / problem solving and then basically the rate of decline, the rate of decay of comfort.
That's great. That's great. Well, thank you all for tuning in and watching our show. We appreciate it. We've enjoyed having you. And thank you for making us a part of the pursuit of your purpose.